Okay, guys, this literally just happened and I'm still shaking. Need to get this out before I lose my mind. So my wedding is in 3 weeks. Was in 3 weeks. Past tense now, I guess. I'm at my final dress fitting this morning, feeling all bridal and whatever, when my phone starts going absolutely insane, like vibrating off the table, insane. My sister, my mom, my friends, everyone's blowing up my phone. First text I see is from my maid of honor. Please tell me you know about this. I'm like, know about what? So I check Instagram and there it is. My fiancé Marcus posted a story with a poll. An actual poll asking people to vote on whether I have the right to be mad that he's canceling our wedding. I'm standing there in a $3,000 dress, surrounded by mirrors, reading my breakup in real time, while strangers on the internet decide if my feelings are valid. But honestly, after the shock wore off, I realized something. This was going to be easier than I thought. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. Thank you for all the support. I'm reading every comment. Update. Just got off the phone with the venue. They're being surprisingly understanding about everything. More on this later. Update 2. His mother just called me. I cannot even begin to describe this conversation, but I'm adding it below. Okay, so where do I even start with this dumpster fire? Let me back up and give you the full picture of what led to this Instagram disaster. Marcus and I have been together for 4 years. We got engaged last Christmas in front of both our families. The whole 9 yards with the surprise proposal, professional photographer hiding in the bushes, rose petals, the works. I thought we were solid. Like, buy a house and get a dog, solid. We'd even started looking at apartments together and talking about kids' names. The wedding planning started off amazing, actually. We were that annoying couple who got genuinely excited about centerpieces and menu tastings. We picked a venue, booked a DJ, sent out save the dates. I'll admit, I got a little intense about the details. Okay, fine. Maybe I created a 47-page wedding binder with color-coded tabs and laminated timeline sheets, but Marcus seemed into it. He'd joke about my wedding spreadsheets, but always in a sweet way. He even made me a custom Excel template for tracking RSVPs because he said my system was impressively thorough but visually chaotic. Looking back now, I think that should have been my first red flag. Who makes spreadsheets for someone they're planning to dump? But anyway, the wedding planning was actually bringing us closer together. We'd spend Sunday mornings in bed with coffee and laptops, researching photographers and debating whether uplighting was worth the extra cost. It felt like we were really building something together, But then something shifted about 2 months ago. He started getting weird about money. Not like concerned about our budget weird, but full-on panic attacks about the cost. Which was strange, because we'd already talked about this extensively. We both have good jobs. I'm a graphic designer, he's in marketing. We'd been saving for over a year, and our parents were helping with some expenses. He'd make these comments like, "Do we really need chair covers?" And "Why are we spending so much on flowers that'll die in a week?" At first, I thought he was just getting cold feet about the expenses, so I suggested we scale back some things. Cut the cocktail hour, smaller bridal party, simpler flowers, whatever he needed to feel comfortable. But it kept getting worse. He started questioning everything. Why did we need a photographer for the whole day? Why couldn't we just have a courthouse wedding? Why was I being so materialistic about wanting a real celebration? That word, materialistic, it stung. Because that's not what this was about for me at all. This was about celebrating our love with the people who mattered to us, about marking this huge milestone in our lives in a meaningful way. But every time I tried to explain that, he'd shut down or change the subject. The weird thing is, these conversations would happen out of nowhere. Like, we'd be watching Netflix, and suddenly he'd be like, "You know what's crazy? How much we're spending on one day." Or we'd be grocery shopping and he'd see the price of flowers in the store and launch into a rant about the wedding floral budget. I started walking on eggshells around anything wedding related. I'd get excited about some detail, like finding the perfect song for our first dance, and then immediately feel guilty for caring about it. Jessica, my maid of honor, kept telling me it was normal groom nerves and that he'd snap out of it once the day got closer. Then came the bachelor party 3 weeks ago. His college friends took him to Vegas, And when he came back, he was different, distant. He kept checking his phone and would get this weird look on his face, like he was fighting some internal battle. What I didn't know at the time was that Jessica had been texting him constantly while he was away. She later told me she was checking in about wedding details, but now I realize she was probably coordinating their whole scheme. I asked him what was wrong at least a dozen times. Just tired from the trip, he'd say. Or wedding stress, you know how it is. But I could feel him pulling away from me, from us, from everything we'd built together. He started working late more often, claiming big projects at work. He'd come home exhausted and distracted, barely wanting to talk about anything, let alone wedding planning. Our physical relationship basically died, too. We went from being that couple who couldn't keep their hands off each other to roommates who happened to share a bed. When I tried to initiate anything, he'd claim he was too tired or stressed. I started wondering if there was someone else, but he'd get so offended when I brought it up that I'd end up apologizing for even asking. Jessica kept telling me this was all normal. All grooms go through this, she'd say. He's just processing the big life change. Give him space and he'll come around. She was so reassuring, so supportive. I trusted her completely. The breaking point came last Tuesday. We were supposed to meet with the caterer for final head count and menu selections. Simple stuff that should have taken an hour max. Marcus shows up 20 minutes late, barely says 2 words during the entire meeting, and afterwards in the parking lot, he just explodes. I can't do this anymore, he says. All of this planning and stress and money and expectations, I feel like I'm drowning. I'm standing there completely blindsided. Okay, I say, trying to stay calm. Let's talk about this. What specifically is bothering you? We can work through it. But he's not hearing me. He's got that look in his eyes, like he's already checked out. You don't get it. You're so focused on the perfect wedding that you can't see I'm falling apart. Which was complete nonsense because I'd been asking him what was wrong for weeks. I'd suggested postponing, scaling back, literally anything to help with his stress. But somehow I was the problem for not reading his mind. We had this massive fight right there in the parking lot. He accused me of caring more about the wedding than our relationship. I accused him of waiting until 3 weeks before to suddenly have cold feet. It got ugly fast. Maybe we should just call the whole thing off, he said at one point, and my heart stopped. Is that what you want? I asked. He got this look on his face, relief mixed with panic. I don't know. Maybe. I just need time to think. But here's the thing. Even after that fight, I thought we'd work it out. That's what couples do, right? They fight, they cool off, they talk it through. I gave him space that night, figured we'd hash it out the next day like adults. I even called Jessica afterwards, crying and asking for advice. She came over with wine and tissues and spent 3 hours talking me through it. He's scared, she said. Big commitment, big change. But he loves you. You guys will figure it out. She was so convincing, so caring. I went to bed that night actually feeling hopeful that we could work through this rough patch. Instead, I wake up to 17 missed calls and my entire world imploding via social media. Because apparently, instead of calling me or coming over or literally any normal form of human communication, Marcus decided to crowdsource our breakup. The poll wasn't just asking if I should be upset. It was asking our friends and family to validate his decision to leave me 3 weeks before our wedding. The worst part? By the time I saw it, 200 plus people had already voted. His college buddies were commenting things like, "Bro, you gotta do what's right for you and better now than after the wedding, man." My own relatives were seeing this train wreck in real time, trying to figure out if they should cancel their flights. But the absolute nail in the coffin was what he posted in his main feed an hour later. A long caption about toxic relationships and knowing when to walk away, and how he was finally free to focus on his mental health and personal growth. He made me sound like some controlling bridezilla who'd been holding him hostage. Never mind that he proposed to me. Never mind that every single wedding decision had been made together. He rewrote our entire relationship history to make himself the victim and me the villain. And you know what the most messed up part is? Part of me actually started believing it. Sitting there in that wedding dress, reading comment after comment from people I'd known for years taking his side, I started wondering if maybe I had been too focused on the wedding. Maybe I had missed the signs. Maybe I was the problem. That's when my sister showed up at the bridal shop. She'd driven straight over after seeing the posts, and she found me crying in a $3,000 dress, surrounded by strangers asking if I was okay. "Are you kidding me right now?" she said, looking at my phone. "He's really going to make this your fault?" And that's when something clicked. The doubt, the self-blame, the wondering if I was crazy, it all just evaporated because my sister was right. This wasn't about wedding stress or cold feet or even money. This was about a coward who didn't have the guts to break up with me like a human being. Update 3. Okay, guys, I need to eat something and process all your comments before I continue. The support is overwhelming. Part 2 coming soon. And trust me, it gets so much worse before it gets better. Update 4. Back with part 2. Grab some popcorn because this is where things get interesting. So after my sister found me crying in the bridal shop, I went into full strategic mode. Like scary strategic. The kind of focus that only comes from pure rage mixed with public humiliation. First things first, damage control. I called my parents, his parents, the wedding party, everyone who mattered. I gave them the real story before Marcus could spin it further. Most people were horrified when they heard how I actually found out. His own aunt called him a disgrace to the family name. My dad, who usually stays out of drama, called him a coward who doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as my daughter. The venue was surprisingly understanding. Apparently, this isn't the first time they've dealt with a social media breakup, which is both depressing and oddly comforting. They agreed to refund most of our deposit since the cancellation was due to extraordinary circumstances involving public humiliation. But damage control wasn't enough. Not even close. See, Marcus works in marketing for a tech startup called ConnectWave. His whole thing is social media presence and authentic brand engagement. He's literally their lead strategist for crisis management and reputation repair. The man has given actual presentations about the importance of transparent communication and building trust. He's written blog posts about digital empathy and responsible social media use. The irony was too perfect to ignore. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots of his posts, the poll results, comments from mutual friends. I created a timeline of our relationship with receipts. Photos of him proposing. Texts about how excited he was for the wedding. Emails where he pushed for the bigger venue because he wanted to celebrate properly with his extended family. I even found his work presentation from 2 months ago titled Authentic Communication in Crisis: Why Transparency Builds Trust. I screenshotted the slide that said, always address stakeholders directly and personally. Social media should never replace genuine human conversation in sensitive situations. My plan was simple. Wait for the perfect moment, then expose him for the hypocrite he was. Show everyone exactly what kind of man cancels a wedding via Instagram poll, especially when his entire career was built on doing the opposite. I spent 3 days crafting the perfect response post. It was going to be devastating. Professional, factual, but absolutely brutal. I had screenshots, a detailed timeline, even a side-by-side comparison between his authentic communication work presentations and his cowardly breakup method. The post was titled, A Case Study in Crisis Communication, When the Expert Becomes the Crisis. I'd planned to tag his company, his boss, his colleagues. I wanted everyone to see exactly how their digital empathy guru handled his own personal crisis. I was literally hovering over the share button when something unexpected happened. Marcus called me. Not texted, not DM'd. Actually picked up the phone like a functioning adult human being. This was Wednesday night, 4 days after the Instagram disaster. Emma? His voice sounded raw, like he'd been crying for days straight. Can we talk? Please? I almost hung up. Actually, I should have hung up. My finger was literally on the end call button, but something in his voice stopped me. He sounded broken in a way I'd never heard before. Talk about what, Marcus? I think you said everything you needed to say to the entire internet. I know, and I'm so sorry. I messed up so badly. I was scared and I panicked and I handled everything in the worst possible way. He was crying now. Actual tears, not the fake emotional manipulation he'd tried during our fights. This was different. This was raw, ugly crying. I've been sitting in my car outside your apartment for 2 hours trying to work up the courage to call. I know I don't deserve it, but please, can I come up? 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Every fiber of my being screamed no. This was the man who'd humiliated me in front of 200+ people, who'd made me question my own sanity, who'd turned what should have been a private conversation into a public spectacle for entertainment. But something made me say yes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the slim hope that he'd finally give me real answers instead of the garbage excuses he'd been feeding me for weeks. He looked terrible when I opened the door. Unshaven, exhausted, wearing the same clothes from his Instagram photos 3 days ago. He'd clearly been living in his car or something. I deleted everything, he said before I could even invite him in. The posts, the poll, everything. And I called my boss and took a leave of absence. Cool. Anything else? Emma, I need you to know that none of this was about you. Not the wedding, not the money, nothing. You were perfect. You are perfect. This is all on me. He sat down on my couch without permission, which honestly ticked me off. But then he started talking and I couldn't interrupt. Do you remember my bachelor party? Vegas? I nodded. Something happened there. Not what you think. I didn't cheat or anything. But my college roommate, Jake, was there, and he started talking about his divorce. How expensive it was, how his ex-wife took half his stuff, how he's still paying alimony 3 years later. I'm standing there thinking, okay, so standard dude fear about marriage. Not exactly groundbreaking. But then he said something that got in my head. He said the biggest mistake he made was having a big wedding because it made the divorce more public, more humiliating. And he looked me dead in the eye and said, if you have any doubts at all, run now. It only gets harder after the papers are signed. Marcus was crying again. And I started spiraling. What if we got divorced? What if I wasn't good enough for you? What if you realized you could do better? All these what ifs just consumed me. So you decided to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy? I panicked. I thought if I could make you break up with me, it would hurt less than me leaving you. And the social media thing. God, Emma, I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I thought if I made it seem mutual or like it was for good reasons, people wouldn't judge us as much. The logic was so twisted I couldn't even process it. So you decided to humiliate me publicly to protect my feelings? I know it doesn't make sense. Nothing I did makes sense. I was having panic attacks every night, and instead of talking to you about it, I just imploded everything. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small jewelry box. Not the engagement ring. Something else. This was going to be your wedding day gift. I bought it 2 months ago before everything went sideways. Inside was a delicate necklace with a small pendant. Engraved on it were the coordinates of where we first met. And that's when I realized something that changed everything. This wasn't just some coward who couldn't handle commitment. This was someone who'd been planning thoughtful surprises while simultaneously self-destructing. Someone who'd been so paralyzed by fear that he'd blown up his entire life rather than admit he was scared. Don't get me wrong. What he did was still unforgivable. The public humiliation, the cowardice, making me doubt myself. None of that was okay. But sitting there looking at this broken man who'd clearly been torturing himself for weeks, I realized something else. My revenge post wasn't going to fix anything. It would just more pain, more public drama, more of the exact thing that had started this mess. Marcus, I said, setting the jewelry box aside. You hurt me in a way I didn't think was possible. What you did was cruel and cowardly, and I will never, ever forgive you for it. His face crumpled. But I also can't keep carrying this anger around. It's poisoning me. I took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside me. I'm not going to destroy you online. I'm not going to expose you or humiliate you or try to ruin your life. But I need you to understand something. Update 5. Guys, this is getting long and I need a break. The ending is wild and I want to get it right. Give me an hour and I'll post the conclusion. Some of your guesses in the comments are close, but nobody's got it exactly right yet. Final update. Okay, guys, here's how this actually ends. And I promise you it's not what anyone expected. So I'm sitting there with Marcus, about to tell him that I forgive him, but never want to see him again, when my phone rings. It's my maid of honor, Jessica. Emma, you need to get on Instagram right now. There's something you have to see. My heart sinks. What now? More drama? More public humiliation? But when I open the app, I see something that makes my blood turn to ice. There's a new post from Jessica, posted 2 hours ago. It's a photo of her and Marcus at a restaurant, laughing, looking comfortable and intimate in a way that makes my stomach drop. And the caption reads, "Some secrets are worth keeping until now. Thanks for making this so much easier, babe." I look up at Marcus, who's gone completely white. His hands are literally shaking. Emma, I can explain. But Jessica is still on the phone, and I can hear her laughing. Actually laughing. Did you really think we wouldn't get caught eventually? Marcus has been staying at my place for 3 weeks. Ever since Vegas, when he finally got the courage to tell me he's been in love with me since college. The room starts spinning. Marcus is trying to talk, but I can't hear him over the blood rushing in my ears. The Instagram poll was my idea. Jessica continues, her voice sickeningly sweet. I told him it would be kinder than dragging out a fake relationship. And honestly, watching you plan a wedding for a man who was sneaking out to see me every night was getting exhausting. Everything clicks into place. Jessica pushing me to make the wedding bigger because you only get married once. Make it count. Jessica suggesting Marcus needed space when I complained about him being distant. Jessica being conveniently available every time I needed to vent about wedding stress, always with wine and tissues and perfect advice. She'd been playing both sides this entire time. Marcus is standing now, reaching for me. Emma, please, that's not what happened. She's lying. I ended things with her after Vegas, I swear. This conversation we just had, it was real. Everything I said was true. But Jessica's post has comments now. Screenshots of text conversations between her and Marcus. Photos of them together, dating back months, way before Vegas. Even a video of him in her apartment this morning, talking about how relieved he is that it's finally over and how he can't wait to start fresh with her. The man who just sat in my living room crying about panic attacks and fear of commitment had been planning this betrayal for months. The thoughtful necklace, the tears, the whole broken man routine, it was all an act to make sure I didn't destroy him publicly. You came here to manage the crisis, I say, the realization hitting me like a truck. This whole apology was damage control. Marcus looks like he's going to throw up. No, Emma, please listen. Get out. Emma, get out of my apartment right now. After he leaves, I sit on my couch for about an hour, staring at nothing. Then I start going through Jessica's post more carefully. The comments are brutal. Apparently several people had suspected something was going on. My own cousin commented, "Finally, the truth comes out," with screenshots of Marcus leaving Jessica's building at 6 a.m. 2 weeks ago. Then I notice something that makes me start laughing. Actual, slightly hysterical laughter. Because here's the thing, guys. I almost fell for it. I almost let his fake apology stop me from getting the revenge he actually deserved. I almost chose forgiveness over justice because I thought he was genuinely remorseful. But Jessica's betrayal just handed me the perfect ending to this story. See, Jessica works in HR at a mid-sized consulting firm that has very strict policies about social media conduct and workplace relationships. She's actually the person who enforces those policies. And Marcus, well, his boss at ConnectWave is going to be very interested in how their star, authentic communication expert has been conducting himself online. But here's the really beautiful part. Remember that detailed revenge post I'd written? The one comparing Marcus's professional advice to his personal conduct? I still had it saved in my drafts. So I posted it. All of it. The timeline, the screenshots, the professional hypocrisy, everything. But I added a new section at the end about how the crisis communication expert had tried to manage his personal crisis by sending his mistress to gather intelligence while he attempted damage control through fake remorse. I tagged ConnectWave. I tagged Jessica's company. I tagged everyone. The post went viral in our social circle within hours. Marcus's colleagues started commenting, expressing their disappointment in the disconnect between his professional standards and personal conduct. Jessica's boss saw the post because someone forwarded it to her, along with screenshots of Jessica's own post admitting to the affair. By Friday morning, both Jessica and Marcus were unemployed. ConnectWave issued a statement about maintaining integrity in all aspects of representation. Jessica's company cited violation of social media policy and conduct unbecoming of an HR professional. But wait, it gets better. Remember how I mentioned Marcus had been staying at Jessica's place? Well, turns out Jessica lives in a company-owned apartment that comes with her HR job. She has 30 days to move out. And the engagement ring? The one Marcus gave me that cost 3 months of his salary, I sold it and used the money to book a solo trip to Italy. I leave next month. Sometimes the universe handles your revenge for you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just sit back and watch karma work. But sometimes, when the universe needs a little help, you give it a push. Edit. For everyone asking, yes, I kept the wedding dress. I'm wearing it to my friend's wedding next month as a guest. She said I look incredible in it and it deserves to be worn to a celebration of actual love. Edit 2. Marcus has been calling and texting nonstop, but I blocked all his numbers. Jessica apparently tried to reach out through mutual friends to explain her side, but nobody's interested in hearing it. Edit 3. Update on Jessica and Marcus. They're both still unemployed 3 weeks later. Apparently their respective industries are smaller than they thought. Jessica moved back in with her parents in another state. Marcus is staying with his college friend Jake. Yes, the divorce guy from Vegas. And from what I hear, Jake is charging him rent and making him sleep on the couch. Edit 4. To everyone saying I went too far, they humiliated me publicly first, then tried to manipulate me into not defending myself. Actions have consequences. Edit 5. Final update because people keep asking. I'm doing great. Really, truly great. The Italy trip is going to be amazing. I've been dating someone new, a photographer I met through work, and honestly, this whole experience taught me to trust my instincts. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time.